I'm Jeff Chasen here with Melissa Cook from Abington COPES. Welcome to the second episode of an Abington COPES moment. Melissa, did you ever think we'd be sitting here doing a show for public access?
Absolutely not. But when opportunity knocks, you open it. So
That's right.
yeah.
Tonight we have with us a friend, special guest, Kevin Rosario. Kevin is with A.C.E.S, and we'll let Kevin tell you a little bit more about who he is and what he does here in the community.
Can I just say sorry before we go? We're actually in Abington a little bit. We know a little bit about Kevin because we were able to bring him into our middle schoolers back in November, so we are familiar with him.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Would you like me to do my intro now?
Hit it.
Okay. My name's Kevin Rosario. I'm the founder of A.C.E.S, which is Addiction Consulting and Education Services. It's a kind of just a side business that I started 100% out of passion because I do love speaking to teens and young people and really anybody that will hear me about recovery and prevention work. So my primary goal with that is to reduce stigma through education, speaking with first responders and any other community stakeholders that interact with people with substance use disorder to kind of just give them a little bit of an understanding about addiction so that maybe they can interact with us better, and then really prolonging or delaying first-time use for adolescents and or early interventions for people that are starting with vaping and marijuana and edibles and things of that nature. And I just recently started a new job at New England Medical Group, which is based out of Hingham. We're going to be opening an adolescent program over there, so I'm super excited about that.
Yay.
It's kind of like almost like a partnership. Like I'm employed by them, but they're like, speak in the schools, keep doing your prevention work, go out in the community. I'm the senior director of community engagement, and I'll be working with alumni and family coaching. And within the next 90 days, so right now we're in March, I'd say mid-April, maybe first week of June, we're going to have an animal-assisted adolescent program right up Route 3 in Hingham, which is super exciting.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Super cool, super unique.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working in the field, as you know, Jeff, known Jeff a long time. Like, I've been in the field 12 years and change, and maybe about 6 years ago, I really got into being open about being a person in long-term recovery. I've been in recovery since July of 2010, and it started off of just putting that out there to reduce stigma and let people know, hey, if you need help.
Kevin, so it was just 6 years ago that you started being open about it?
6 years of public speaking, yeah.
Yeah, no, I was just curious. That's cool.
Yeah, I've been in recovery for 13,
right.
But early on it's like, be humble. We only talk about it in the halls.
Right.
There's stigma. People are afraid.
Yep.
But working in the field at one point on Cape Cod, a school reached out and was like, hey, can someone in recovery come talk in our health class?
Yeah.
And that's how it started, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And then it grew into like a full-blown business and like educational learning objectives and so on and so forth. So it's been a cool journey. I'm excited to be here and be helpful in Abington in any way I can in the surrounding towns. You guys are lucky to have you guys and all the other people on your coalition.
I thought you were going to say we're lucky to have you.
No, of course not. I'm just one little drop in the bucket, It's not enough. You need people making noise and changing curriculum and bringing in resources. Like you can bring in speakers and they can wow a crowd, and then you're gone. Then what? Like, how do you reinforce that? How do you get that message to the parents? How do you get the parents to buy in? I see some of the biggest challenges I have is like, you get a kid or a student who starts to believe that vaping or marijuana is dangerous, but then a loved one openly vapes and smokes marijuana, and it's a conflict, Right. So how do you separate, like, hey, not to demonize alcohol, if you're 35 years old and you have a glass of wine, good for you, but why young people shouldn't do it is make it more scientific and about risk factors and genetic predisposition, and talk to them like young adults, not like little kids. I think that's the biggest mistake adults make talking to young people, 12, 13, 14, 15. We look at them like little kids, but they think they're already adults. So you can't scare them and disrespect them and talk down to them, but you can educate them and empower them and give them information. And I even acknowledge, like, look, I can say whatever I'm going to say and you're going to do whatever you're going to do. I'm not going to scare you and I'm not going to change your life, but here's some nuggets, here's some tools, here's some things to think about that maybe it'll help you make better decisions, or at a minimum, maybe someone else that's already further down the road, right? Even the kid that's smoking weed here and there that never thinks it'll be a problem has a cousin that's maybe a heroin addict or a fentanyl addict. And so if you come from the approach, hey, maybe listen to this information, maybe you can help him, kid drops his guard a little bit. All right, he's not attacking me. He's not talking down to me. He's not trying to scare me. Even though I smoke a little weed, right? Maybe this information can be helpful to them. So that's kind of been my approach a little bit.
Well, I think the thing that was great about you and this is not like a diss on any other speakers or anything, but when you came in, I feel like you talked to them like at their level, because sometimes speakers will come in and they talk about the worst day, but like, we should focus on the first day, like why? And you talk about that when you were younger, this is what was going on. You felt all these things and, that's why you started using. And I feel like to get on their level like that is something different. Not everybody does, and you're interactive with them, so.
Thank you.
Yeah,
well, I've also made a lot of mistakes, right? And so when you come in, like first, as recovery people, 12-step people, we're like, alcohol's bad, God is the solution, 12 steps, abstinent, everything. You become this hardcore, rigid person because that's what you're taught.
Yeah.
And then if you actually stay in recovery and you mature and you meet other people that have been successful through other pathways, and being a professional, I was almost forced to learn ethics and best practices, and I'm not a clinician, but I've been trained by clinical and medical people, then it becomes less about this hardcore black and white thing, and it's like, all right, how can I get this to land? So what's the goal? Public Speaking 101 says, what's your message, who's your audience, and how do you tailor your message to land on the audience? You might have the same 3 key points, but you deliver it different to a police officer, to a parent, and to a teenager.
Right.
And like I think about, all right, so what about 15-year-old Kevin Rosario?
Right.
Literally in the crowd, smoking weed, already getting in trouble. Here comes the dare guy. You're going to die. I'm like, shut up, dare guy. I'm going to go smoke a joint right after this just to laugh at the dare guy, right? And like, you're not going to, I'm a grown man. I was just like, a little runt. But this
you said you were a little twerp.
I was a little
I love
twerp.
when you say that. I was a little twerp.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so if you know that, there's at least a dozen Kevin Rosarios in every room, right? So it's not, I don't want to say manipulation. You can call it motivational interviewing. But like if I know they're going to be reject and like kind of shut down if I come at it this certain way, then it's like, all right, here's some reverse psychology. I don't care what you do. I'm not trying to scare you. I don't think you're bad kids, which there's some truth to that, but I'm doing it to drop their guard so they can actually receive the message. If I come in with doom and gloom, you're going to shoot heroin and overdose and go to jail like I did. First of all, that's not factual. A lot of those kids will grow out of it and be fine, successful people. And 2, they're going to reject it because the little undeveloped brain, it's incomprehensible that vaping in junior high school means I'm going to shoot heroin someday. And it doesn't mean that, but you are at an increased risk to go down that road. So I've learned from coming in hardcore 12-step, then coming in, shirt and tie, clinical superiority, I know science, let me impress you, and then coming in like, well, let's take a little bit of all this. This is my personal recovery experience.
Deeper dive.
Here's some real life science, and then let's just be real and talk to you like humans and say, hey, look, do what you want with it. I was just today, I spoke at Plymouth Harbor Academy, which is right down the road from you guys, maybe 30 minutes, and it's an alternative high school for kids that have behavioral issues, sometimes substance use, sometimes not. And I just had to get and that's why I'm usually in a shirt and tie. I was like, today, I'm wearing Air Maxes, you know what I mean? My man Eddie B is going to give me a hard time because I'm always teasing him about the Air Maxes. Got you, bro. Now I'm going to have to tag him in this, plug it, share it on his social. But my thing was like, these kids have a story. Last year when I spoke there, some kid came up to me, and which is rare because there's 35 of them, and like sometimes I get an email after the fact, but for him to come right up to me in front of everybody and not care that they saw him talking to me, I pull him in the back room. This kid's a transplant from Florida. He watched his 20-year-old brother get murdered in the street in front of him. I think his mom had died. He was in a gang selling drugs to pay all the bills for the rest of his family and was getting in trouble out there and was moved up north to be with his grandmother. Now, if you just go in that room and you label him as like a 15-year-old punk, you have no idea what the hell that kid's been through. And you could say that about every human in the universe. You don't know where people are coming from. You don't know what trauma they have, what their story is. And like, so I try to come like just a little softer, a little less abrasive, a little more vulnerable. Like I share parts of me that I don't really want to share. It makes them laugh, and I think it also makes them see, like I'm not coming from a better than. I might be in recovery a while. I still have issues. I still have insecurities. I still have fears. I still have challenges and bad habits that I need to work on. But I know what I'm talking about in this space, so, do what you want with that information.
I like what you said though about where do you want to land? It has to be realistic. And a goal-oriented approach is going to have people landing in better places.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think, Kev, are some of the biggest challenges the public still faces with just even beginning to unpack and discuss the substance use crisis still, gripping many communities?
Yeah, I mean,
that's a big question.
It is, and I can go a lot of different ways with it, so it's good, I guess. We don't know where it'll go, because I thought of one thing, and I'm like, I'm going to back out of that first, and I'll go somewhere else first. So, one, I'd like to say, especially in this area, Brockton area, Plymouth area, South Coast, Abington, Weymouth, there's been a lot of work done here, so there's a lot less stigma. There's a lot more smaller little pockets of people, Holbrook here, Avon, A.C.E.S, Abington, and Plymouth County. So that's good. There's awareness, people are out there, so there's a little less stigma, so people get it. So I think we have to acknowledge we've made some progress. We've made a lot of Narcan available, Narcan training available, and that's good. And we've kind of mass licensed people to do Suboxone, medication-assisted treatment, which at a minimum reduces overdose death. So I feel like that's phase one. I feel like even though a lot of people are still dying, and fentanyl and carfentanil and xylazine and all this next levels of death, it just keeps getting worse. This area has done a good job of creating a good platform, or a good foundation, I should say. So the challenge becomes financial. Often people that are struggling with substance use and or just mental health conditions, they can't go to treatment for a week or a month or a year. They may be the primary caregiver. Or you are the person of someone under someone else's insurance. If you're a 22, 24-year-old, maybe 28, right? You termed out of private insurance, now you got Mass Health, but the family has no money. Guess what? There's not a lot of options if you have Mass Health, right? You got a PPO, good for you. You can go anywhere in the world.
I know.
But that's 15% of the population. So you ask about barriers.
Good stat to know.
Yeah, there's barriers to treatment.
Right.
There's good places. You got the High Points and the Gavins and Quincy, and you got Gosnold. They take a lot of Mass Health, but still, there are rarely beds every day. So it's just hit or miss.
Seems like there are fewer and fewer each year.
Yeah, and then even if you're lucky to get there, maybe you get 5 to 7 days. It's even harder to get a CSS, clinical stabilization bed. Even if you get that, that's another 2 weeks. So if you're real lucky, you might get 3 weeks. And then a lot of people have no money for sober living.
Yep.
Even if you have a scholarship,
right,
you can't find a good sober house.
Right.
And even if you find a good sober house, then where do you get the clinical support? So I'm not being critical, I'm just being real. There's a lot of good stuff and there's a lot of resources in Massachusetts, but there's still not a lot of long-term support for the people that don't have resources. Right, if you don't have good insurance, if you don't have money, then you're stuck with this rat race. A person that's been using for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, that goes to detox for 7 days, has very little chance of survival if they just go home and go back to work.
Right.
So what's the solution? I don't know. We continue to use, advocate for funds and grants and go after this opioid money and try to channel it towards sober living scholarships and extended care programs and inexpensive treatment models to stretch the dollar. There's a lot of great places, but if it's $64,000 a month, how many people can we help? Can we find a place that'll do it for $12,000 and now you can help 5 people instead of 1 person? So that's the challenge, and I feel like there's a lot of money being put around per towns, and it's going to the town manager, and quite frankly, I don't know the Abington town manager, no disrespect, most of these town managers have no clue. They don't live in the addiction world. They don't know mental health. I feel like there's one thing, and I'm going to say it, whatever, the one mistake the government made was not allocating the money to the right people that knew how to spend the money. They were like, here's the money, town managers, you figured it out independently, and some towns did better bringing in professionals that know what to do and collaborating with people how do we best spend this money, and other towns didn't. By default, a town with no substance use people on that board, they're gonna say, well, the school needs a new gym and we need new rec clothes, and that's a form of prevention because people that play sports, da-da-da.
It should be a cardinal sin to, misuse that money, period.
And they're not bad people. They don't know any better. If you're like a school board official and someone's like, you get 60 grand a year for the next 10 years and you have no history of prevention of substance use work, you're gonna be like looking around, like, well, kids that read books might not use drugs and kids that stay active in sport. It's an easy justification. And I'm not saying that's a bad spend. You should have that money to do that. But also, how do you formally bring in prevention education, curriculum, third-party speakers? How do you form after-school substance misuse, curiosity, vaping support groups? Like, where does a kid even go
or
if he
just,
says...
after school clubs.
Yeah.
Because between the hours of like 3 to 6, kids are most prone to making poor decisions. So like, what about the kids that are going home that don't have that home support?
Yeah.
But I feel like, and then a lot of the money hasn't even been spent yet too, because, and it's like we're going into, I think this money got here in 2022 and now we're 2024, so it's frustrating.
It's some of that for some of the coalitions in the towns that I know of that are super proactive. That's good because they actually have been taking the time to bring in stakeholders that know what to do, and so they're coming up with a plan. So there's a buffer between not doing anything with it and wasting the money, and just impulsively spending it on what you think it should be, and then like a reasonable amount of time to come up with a good plan. Because in the reality, like, whatever you're getting, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a year, the number is real big. But on the scale of impact, it's actually really small unless used wisely. Because like you hear millions of dollars and you think that's nothing. It's a drop in the bucket, but it's a step in the right direction,
One idea I keep coming back to on a big way to use, technically a small amount of money to make an impact is having just a big, grand, elaborate party in town square, and
brought that up.
not like lavish in a ridiculous way, but like food trucks that are hired and paid for the day to make and distribute food, and invite all the local craftspeople to have tables and sell their items. Make it a big fun party. Maybe have some bands and just throw a big party and invite everyone, and everyone knows why they get to go have this fun time. And what it's in honor of, and the sadness and tragedy that led to being able to throw a party like that, to remember people and to spark a conversation publicly, but what do I know?
Because you go back to the Beanstalk days. That's what I'm thinking about when you're thinking about that.
And that's, it
was a great event.
That's something that brings people out to a common purpose, to have, a good afternoon and listen to some music and see some bands, and who's hosting this, how did we get here, why are we here, and that's where the conversational piece comes. And until people are talking about this at the public level, seeing a large impact occur from any effort, I just feel like is a grim concept, to wrap my hands around.
I'm a big fan of doing anything you can do to make young people feel good about themselves. I'm really focused on the young people. Like, listen, people are dying every day. Adults are struggling. They need help, and we'll help them. That's great. You work in treatment. I work in treatment. We can connect people to any level of care. That's fine. But it's much harder to help a 40-year-old with significant brain damage and trauma from 15, 20 years of using and life experiences than it is to try to divert a 13 or 14-year-old that's starting to experiment, put them back on the track. So I think more money and time should be spent on the young people. And specifically, I've been to thousands of meetings in 13 years of recovery, right? And I can tell you the most common intro is, hi, my name's Kevin, I'm an alcoholic. When I was like 12 or 13, I felt like I had real insecurity. I had low self-esteem. I didn't feel comfortable in my own skin. Mom and dad had some issues. I got bullied. And it's all this insecure, low self-esteem stuff. And then smoked their first joint, drank their first beer, took Molly, whatever, and because they already didn't feel okay with self, drugs and alcohol were very appealing, and then now the next thing you know, they're self-medicating. So real prevention work is not about nice speakers, it's not about scare tactics, it's not about threatening. The best prevention work you could ever do with young people is build them up. build self-esteem, empower them, identify kids that have actual negative ACEs, right? So my acronym on my name, ACEs, I wanted to be a positive ACE. The negative ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. Science says the more adverse childhood experiences you have, aka pain or trauma, the more likely you are to misuse substances. Makes sense. If you have pain, you want to medicate it. So ACEs, Addiction Consulting and Education, is like, how do we be the positive antidote? It's not just by doing talks, it's by like trying to identify people that have risk factors and helping them. And if you have trauma, let's do some therapy on that. You have, like back in the day, there was this like AIDS study research, and they were trying to spend money for AIDS treatment. And there was this one doctor, God, forgive me, I don't remember the guy's name, but he talked about like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, the dude has no place to live. He has no food. He's living on a park bench, and you want him to be medication compliant? Like, if we don't meet the basic needs of life, how can we actually treat it? So it's like, how do we look at the whole patient? And that's how I feel like we should be spending money on the youth. And I always give a shout out to Patty Machado, who recently retired from Barnstable County Recreation. And every year, and they still do this, they do a 7th grade youth summit. And they bring all the 7th graders from the whole Cape Cod in buses to Cape Cod Community College, and they bring in a variety of speakers and topic people. But the power behind it is the 7th graders are empowered to do a project. And they basically, like, say you quarterback it, you say, okay, we got $1,000. There's 3 projects, they vote on which one they want to do. They elect the treasurer, the secretary, the chairperson, whatever. They come up with a plan how to execute it, and they basically do the whole thing themselves from beginning to end. And it could be like plant flower beds at a cemetery, or volunteer clean up landscaping at a nursing home, whatever it is. And at this event, they present to the community the enrichment project that they did this year. And
So
when
it's
you
a
want
big
to,
deal.
the kids are glowing, dude.
Right.
Yeah.
They're glowing. And Patty used to say, you know how you help kids with low self-esteem? I'm like, how? She's like, have them do esteemable things.
I
And
love that.
I just
Yeah.
always use that.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do we give young people an opportunity, despite the family, the tragedy that's going on at home, tough times? How do we give them an opportunity to do something that just makes them feel good about themselves, right? We in recovery, at least 12-step recovery, a big part of 12-step recovery is the 12-step, which says we carry this message, we try to help others. Because what I learned about myself is I'm full of ego, self-centeredness, selfishness, I only care about me, I'm consumed with self, I'm a manipulator, I'm a liar. I was like a super sick person, and come to find out the antidote to a super self-centered person is self-sacrifice, service, volunteering, giving back to others. So like over the years of recovery, right? I still sponsor people, I still go to meetings, I still do commitments, and I try to be helpful off the clock when I'm not getting paid, and I don't put it on social, right? And that helps me feel like a decent person. It helps me rebalance my feng shui, my karma, my rightness with God and the universe for all the negative stuff I've done to now to try to pump back into the universe. So if you ask me, what would you do? I don't know, anything. A combination of things that give kids opportunities to feel good about themselves, to heal from their trauma, to be empowered and not disempowered and disrespected. Like, I grew up in a generation that was like, you're a kid, shut up, go over there, don't do this because I said so. Don't drink because I said so as I'm drinking my beer. Like, that doesn't work. Like, how about you consider not doing it or delaying it for these reasons? You know, your uncle was an alcoholic, it runs in your family, you're at an increased risk. You already have ADHD, you're at an increased risk. You have an underdeveloped prefrontal cortex, you're at an increase. Let me give you all this data that says this is why it's a bad idea, not because I said so because you're a bad kid, because you're stupid, because it's illegal. It's not because of any of those things, it's because of science.
Bad move.
Yeah. So clearly I'm passionate about that.
Well, that's how I feel, making them, their self-esteem, making them, feel worthy, and building them up and helping them maybe find their thing too, that spark, their spark. So they, don't feel like when people, hey, do you want to try this? They feel cool with themselves. They don't need to.
That reminds me of another point. I feel like we should have refusal skills.
I knew you were going to say that.
Refusal skills, like classes, right? So like, God bless Nancy Reagan, like they meant well, like the war on drugs in the 80s, just say no, just say no. That's not real life. At 14 years old, I'm so desperate for approval and to find my wolf pack and to be accepted by others, just saying no could ostracize me.
Right.
How about this? Find a way out that doesn't disassociate you from the group as a whole. And like I've learned different things from different people over the years, but it's like, yeah, no, I would vape, but like I don't want to take that risk. I'm into sports. Or like, oh,
My parents are going to kill me.
Parents are going to kill me. Like, but instead of just running away and being weird, like, nah, I'm good. You want to go play basketball, or you want to play, Fortnite or whatever the hell the kids are doing now. Like, it could be an alternative. So instead of falling into peer pressure and just being a follower, you could turn that around and end up being a person that leads by a good example.
Right.
Because the reality is, if we don't give kids skills and we don't give them practice and they don't have opportunities and tools, I always go like this because I think of my tool belt or my guns, I'm going to have a weapon. Like, if kids don't have tools, when deer in headlights approach when they weren't expected, it's fight, flight, or freeze. A lot of young people freeze, right? And then you just do it. But if you're prepared, no, I'm good. Nah, it runs in my family. No, I can't do it. Mom's got quick cups at home. I don't want to lose the Wi-Fi. No, I got a genetic predisposition. I'm whatever it is, whatever it is, get them to rehearse that to the point where, like, when someone approaches them with something, it's like, nah, man, I'm good, blah, blah, blah. It's just part of they've already been trained on how to reject it in a cool way, where they don't feel weird and awkward.
Because they feel weird and awkward enough.
Yeah, it's a weird and awkward age.
It is, yes.
I just told
I have two middle schoolers, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like your hormones are going bananas, your brain's still developing, you're trying to figure out who you are, where you want to be in life. I mean, and quite frankly, this is like, a sensitive topic. It's a more challenging time than ever. Now it's like with sexuality, they have more options. Like, you can be they now, you can be non-binary, and I don't have an opinion on that. I'm just saying, think about that from the developing mind of a teenager, where it was hard enough to be male or female, gay or straight. Gay was like a really tough thing when I grew up to come out with that. And like, there's been a lot of progressive gay and transgender. It's like there's a lot of acceptance around that. And now we're at this new thing, and it's like I see a lot of young people just going non-binary, and I feel like, this could be a dicey thing, but I feel like it's just because they're uncomfortable.
Right.
And rather than like try to work that out, like, I'm just going to pause that for now, and they'll maybe figure it out later.
Right.
But there's just another complexity that, quite frankly, I'm not trained and educated enough to really talk on. But it's something I see when I'm talking with the young kids.
Of course,
it's like they're struggling with that.
Yeah.
And how do you even have that conversation?
Right.
I don't have that education to talk about that.
Yeah.
So how do we bring in professional, educated, non-biased people to help people get through puberty and figure out where you are at with that, because it's just another complexity,
Well, some, like, prevention, people sometimes don't, it can be little day-to-day stuff, like being a trusted adult, like, that's prevention. Giving them a safe space, that's prevention too. So we can all have a part in prevention.
Yeah. I heard something yesterday that I thought was really interesting, and it just made me think of it today. My friend has a 3-year-old, gonna be 4, and every night before bed, he asks his 3-year-old, do you have any, what the heck's the word he used? He was like, what are your thoughts for the day? Or something like that. And like, he just lets the kid blast off, whatever it is. And today, my favorite part of the day was like, I played with Legos and I saw the gun, blah, 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 and just lets the kid pop off until the kid gets everything he's got to get out of them. So when they go to bed, their little mind is rested.
Peaceful.
And I was like, wow, like, I feel like adults could use that, right? Like, often spouses do that. If you're in a relationship, you could be on the bad side of that. You come home after a long day of work and your spouse is like, the blood dumps all over you, right? And they feel better. There's some therapeutic value in that person releasing whatever happened that day. And if you're healthy enough to receive it and be supportive, it can be a healthy thing. Like, maybe we give a space for teens to just unload. What's bothering you? What do you love? What do you love that you don't have a public forum to say?
Right.
Like, maybe it's a random 15-year-old kid's grandmother has a flower bed and low-key loves cutting and grooming the flowers, but like his homies might not think that's so cool. Like, how about we empower you and we get you like a little flower bed in your yard? You know, and that could be like a game changer for someone, even giving them the courage to come out and say, I know I'm supposed to be a tough guy, but I really like grooming grandma's tulips. You know what I'm saying? Dope. What are you passionate about? Like, how can we help people explore themselves, become comfortable with themselves, whatever that is for them, and find their passions? Because people that are passionate and people that have a strong identity of self, I am Kevin Rosario. This is what I stand for. You can't sway me as easily as I used to be, because I was young, I was insecure, I wanted to be liked. So like, confident people, happy, healthy people, people who know who they are, what they like, and what they're passionate about, are less likely to make bad decisions. So how do we help them get there? You know, with social media and all the information that's out there, all this information that they're getting blasted with, how do we help them sort through all the nonsense and the fake news and the propaganda and the fake filters and the fake eyelashes and all the other fake BS and be authentic? You know, I'm not saying that it's an easy thing.
No.
But that's some of the things that I think would be helpful. You know.
Yeah. With my soon-to-be 6-year-old, the being heard piece that you just touched on, you know, like giving him the experience to be heard and then validating, you know, his stuff, you know, that must have been really hard to go through today, you know. I understand why you broke down. You were really tired, you know, and just talking through it and giving him that safe space. Yeah, that's definitely a big piece. And, you know, if you listen to people like Kev and you know, myself, you won't have to be waking up at, you know, 31 years old, learning the concept that the road back to esteem is through esteemable acts. Yeah.
How are we doing on time? We must be getting there.
This has been great. Time has just kind of been standing still. I haven't thought of it at all.
I hadn't until I looked at the clock right there. But yeah, we can keep going, or what do you think, Jeff?
I mean, one thing I really think that should be touched on every chance we can, Melissa, is, you know, what can the viewer at home do to make a difference? We're, you know, part of an organization, Abington COPES, you know, and Kevin has A.C.E.S. You know, we need the support of everyday regular people. That's who we are. You know, I've said this before, there's nothing special about me. You know, I'll speak for myself, but I care, and I, you know, invest my time and my thought and my energy and my passion, you know, as does Kevin, into this topic, and we're just regular people. So, you know, I'd like to hear Kev's take on, you know, what can the viewer or the listener, you know, what kind of difference can they make wherever they are?
Yeah, I feel like in every town, in every city, in every state in America, you could find a local coalition. You could write to local, you know, state officials. Like, these politicians need our vote. And if enough people are saying we need this, they have to do it or they won't get reelected. The problem, I feel like, and I'm not into politics at all, not a big fan of politics, but the reality is, left unchecked, if you don't talk to them, they're going to do whatever the majority of the voices around them are telling them to do, and that doesn't make them bad.
Whatever their agenda is.
Whatever it is. So it's like, I feel like this area, you know, Plymouth County, you know, yeah, D.A. Cruz was super involved. Like, if you get in these people's ear and you say, this is important to us, all of a sudden, they're showing up at events, they're spending money, they're allocating funds towards these causes. So, like, if you're passionate about substance use prevention, adolescent education, recovery options, then find out who your local people are. Like, you could be watching this from anywhere. You don't have to necessarily come to Abington COPES, but if you're in the Abington area, come join the Abington team. And I think just get educated and, you know, educate yourself so that you can be more informed about what you're talking about. But, you know, there's power in numbers. So whether it's a local coalition, whether you're getting involved with state officials to have an impact, if you know people, like, there's a lot of people that are very wealthy and affluent, and they throw money around to causes that they're not personally attached to. Call to action is, if you want to donate or know people that want to donate, find an organization that's making an impact and donate. Most of these places, some of them go away because they get a little 3-year grant and it dries up, and if they don't raise enough money, all those efforts go away. So that's another thing is, like, you know, you could, you know, kind of collaborate with the people that you know. Some people are very blessed and they want to have an impact, and, you know, give them a call, give you guys a call and see what you're doing and what you're up to, and if there's dollars well spent, and you know, you can have an impact that way.
Awesome. So, Kevin, tell everyone where they can find you on your socials.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, my name's Kevin Rosario, and I'm on Facebook, A.C.E.S, Addiction Consulting and Education, is on Facebook and Instagram. New England Medical Group is newenglandmedicalgroup.com. It's pretty simple. My website is addiction-education.com. My email is kevin@addiction-education.com. But I think if you just Google Kevin Rosario, Google A.C.E.S, Google New England Medical Group, I'd be happy to chat in any way. I do professional talks, I do PowerPoints, I do with like legit learning objectives, and I've done it all the way from free up to $5,000. You know, I never say no over money, but some communities have the funding and have the ability to bring in subject matter experts, and some don't. The answer is yes, regardless. If you work with my schedule, I'll do it. And that has nothing to do with the New England Medical Group. New England Medical Group is just the icing on the cake for me, because once in a while I'm going to get a young person that needs help, and now I work for an organization that has adolescent treatment. So it's just really a win-win. So you can find me out there. I'm happy to talk to anyone.
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I'm very excited for episode 3.
I'm getting excited. We did the first couple, so getting the nerves out. So
yeah. For the people at home, tell me when is our monthly meeting? Yes.
Well, I usually text you, so
you do, and
I will give reminder.
I rely on
text.
that reminder.
Yep, second Wednesday of every month at 6 o'clock at the police station in the community room. I do make cookies, and they are kind of like famous, right?
Come for the cookies, stay for the meeting.
Yep.
So thanks for viewing episode 2. Can't wait to see what we're doing next time. Tune in and see.